it's almost like turning fitness into like, how do we build a business? It's like, well, how do we build a plan for you to get back to where, well, I say back to, or just get to where you want to go.
What you're saying is just make it a priority, right? Because if you don't make it a priority now, it's gonna become a priority later for you.
There's a lot of times people go into this journey with like, all right, what's the diet that I need to do to get to where I want to go? What's the hack real quick that I need to do to get to go? Instead of just realizing it's like, I just need to revamp my life in a certain way so that I just live this way.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the TPM Show. We have a very special guest with us today, and we haven't done one, not live, in a long time, but we have David Sherban with us. David, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been excited about this for a while. It's been interesting to see your growth and coming through. And tell the listeners and the guys watching this a little bit about yourself, a little about your background and why you're here.
Absolutely. So I've been a very active person. I was a fitness coach, and so that'll kind of preface a little bit. I grew up dancing, and I was very active, and I played soccer and all that kind of stuff. And so I was a very active kid. And when that dance career decided to be a switch for me, fitness was that thing that took over activity. Now, it's not that I didn't work out while I danced. I was a guy. I had to lift the girls up, right? The stronger I was, the cooler the lifts that I could do, and the more impressive people were, and the bigger applause that I got, right? We all love that. But yeah, when dancing was a thing that was of a past for me, then to kind of put that away, fitness became the thing that I went for activity. And, in the beginning, it was just, I was the guy that just went to the gym and I worked out and I was just trying to get stronger and bigger and all that kind of stuff. And at some point, obviously results are happening because you start getting people asking you questions of like, hey, what's the best ab workout? Or, hey, how did your chest or your arms or this or that? And it's like, what do you eat? How much protein do you have? Like, you just start getting all of those random questions and you start answering. And eventually at one point, somebody was like, hey, do you want to be a coach for this group fitness place? And I was like, sure, why not? Let's give it a go. And so that was awesome. And it eventually rolled into me owning a few gyms in my life, and went from group fitness to being more about the individual. And so my background went from strength and conditioning and helping people get out of pain, specifically without going to the doctor, not to replace the doctor or physical therapist, but there are plenty of people out there like, man, every time I back squat, my hip hurts, or every time I deadlift, my back hurts. And so it was diving into things like that. And, most of my clientele being male business owners, actually, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even their 70s, they're like, I just want to be able to move again. My grandchildren running around me like crazy, and I just want to be able to have memories with them. Right. And so they just wanted that active life back. And that's what I actually loved diving into. It's like, how do I give these men, a life that they're proud of again, right? They've run these businesses, but obviously things get kind of put to the side. Sometimes that's their health and that's their fitness. But so that's where I've been. And I finally actually just got to the point where I sold my company and we're moving on to the next phase of life online.
I love it. I mean, you're making such a difference in people's lives. Obviously, I'm biased. I have a background in fitness like yourself, and I loved that. You get to spend time with somebody and their goals and their dreams, and then help them start achieving it and gain back that vitality so they can live a fuller life.
Yep, exactly.
That's great. So, a lot of the people that watch this on YouTube or listen to this on their podcasts, they're at the gym when they do it, or they're doing, a lot of our guys like yourself, you've been through the TPM program. They're doing their Alpha Rise and Shine, they got their earphones in and probably listen to us now. When we look at that from a health and fitness standpoint, the way I look at it is we have two avenues, right? We have fitness, we have health, and they're not necessarily always the same. But for the men that, that you worked with, what are some of the common misconceptions or like little things that they just missed on their fitness journey?
A lot of the times it's like the misconception is that they have to be in the gym every single day, right? They see me and they ask me questions and they go, how often do you work out? And I'm like, I work out like 3 to 4 times a week. They're like, but how do you look like you and I look like this? And, And it's like, they're just one of those guys that, you're right, they put everything into their business, right? It's all go, all go, all go. And so they try to do that same thing with their fitness. And then it just becomes like a burnout type situation. Like, I'm just not seeing any results, or, it's been so long, and I just continue to gain that 1 to 2 pounds every single year. And those holidays come around, right? And so it was really just breaking down of like, well, how often are you moving around every single day? It's like, are you intentionally eating food, or are you just like so busy during the day that like you just go grab anything that's possible? Or do you just completely miss lunch because you're so busy? Right. And so it's like, you guys are such great planners in your business. It's like, how do we do the same thing for your fitness, right? If something's on your calendar in your business, you're doing it, right? If it's not on your calendar, you're probably not doing it. And that fitness and that health thing needs to be the same way. Like, it needs to be, for some people, I say, you need to put this on your calendar. You got to go and get that morning walk. Go get 2,000 steps out of your 10,000 steps for the day. Or let's start adding into, I know a lot of the guys have an Up, Rise, and Shine, right? Routine. Like, I did it. I still do have it. Part of that walk before I do that is, how do I take all of my supplements real quick, right? Or how do I take my peptides real quick? And how do I get my glass of water before I go on my walk? So it's just, it's almost like turning fitness into like, how do we build a business? It's like, well, how do we build a plan for you to get back to where, well, I say back to, or just get to where you want to go.
What you're saying is just make it a priority, right? Because if you don't make it a priority now, it's gonna become a priority later for you in a much tougher way. And then, so for guys, they're making it simpler. I'm sure a lot of guys, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, David's clearly in great physical shape, aesthetically, and I'm going to assume otherwise. And I got to imagine a lot of guys are like, well, he spends 2 hours a day, 7 days a week in the gym, never has fun, doesn't do anything like that. All this guy does is work out and sleep and eat cardboard. Right? Give them a little bit of a reality check into what you're, not only just the adaptations you've made, because this is obviously a lifestyle for you, but what are some of the things? Give us a day in the life of David.
Yeah, I'll say one thing before I day in the life of David is, a lot of times people go into this journey with like, all right, what's the diet that I need to do to get to where I want to go? What's the hack real quick that I need to do to get to go? Instead of just realizing it's like, I just need to revamp my life in a certain way so that I just live this way. And it doesn't have to be restrictions. So like in my life, like, I love oatmeal with a bunch of brown sugar in it and stuff like that in the morning, and protein powder and stuff like that. I love my ice cream. I probably have it more often than people probably think. Like, I love a good pint of Ben and Jerry's, right? But it's not that I eat like that all the time. Most of my meals, they're already prepped, right? And for some people, like, oh, I can't do meal prep. And it's like, I am all about convenience. I am 100% about how do I make my fitness and my health as convenient as possible. So like, people have probably heard from, Factor. It's a meal order company, right? Comes in every single week. I do that for my lunch and my dinner. Right. And my oatmeal is my easy thing that I make in the morning. And then I always drink a protein shake at some other point in the day. Like, I try to make the nutrition part as simple as possible, because it can become very complicated, right? It's always like, we'll just stay in the front of the grocery store where there's no boxes and it's all fresh food. And like, that's great. But like, do you have the 30 minutes or the 45 minutes or the hour or whatever that is to prep and clean up and eat and all that kind of stuff? If you do, great. Or if you have, somebody that can help you out with that, awesome. But I just like to build things into my life that make it convenient for me. My fitness, my friend owns a gym local to me, and I have an accountability partner when it comes to fitness, right? It's like, I don't just haphazardly go. Now, I love your thing when you tell people just go to the gym. If you don't work out, you don't work out, but at least you made the step. Like, I love that. Like, at least you're making some small habits of the routine of getting into that. But if you can find somebody that helps you push yourself, like, I don't necessarily love doing cardio all the time. I like the strength training part where I get bigger muscles, right? The girls love that. We all love the aesthetic part of fitness, right? But I also don't want to be one of those guys that's like jacked and then they just can't do anything, right? So you got to add the cardiovascular part in, and it may not be any fun, but yeah. And the other thing is your heart's important. Your cardiovascular health is very important to you, right? And so yeah, and I guess the thing is just making a routine for each thing. Like, I have my morning routine. I have my routine when I go to the gym. I know what time I'm going to go to the gym every day. If it's a different time, my accountability partner and I, we've talked about it, and we're like, we're going to the gym at this time. Right. And then at night, like I have my nighttime routine, from like doing my skincare routine to taking my supplements, to taking my magnesium drink at night, taking any of my peptides that I do. And I put that all together. And so it's just, once you do that enough, and this, like once you do something enough, it just becomes a habit. Right. And rather than it just becoming a habit, it just becomes your life. Like, this is just how I live my life now. Right. And as far as people going, well, any restrictions that I have myself, I don't restrict myself. I mean, I understand food and I eat within reason, right? But like, I'll go out with my buddies and I will drink. I understand the consequences of drinking. I'm going to feel inflamed. I'll have 2 beers and I'm also going to have a headache in the morning. And it just is what it is at this point, right? So it's just, it doesn't have to be this whole restriction thing. Is there going to be some, we'll call it sacrifice, to get to the point of where you want to go or be? Yes, there's going to be a little bit of it, right? But once you get there, it's so much easier to stay there than what you think, as long as you had a coach that helped you learn the habits of how you got there, right? There's so many weight loss drugs now that like people just take the weight loss drug, but as soon as they're off that drug, they gain all that weight back because psychologically they learned nothing of how to actually maintain where they're at, right? And so, yeah, that's a little bit about the day in the life of David.
Yeah, I love that. Again, with I always talk about was my previous life in the fitness industry, surrounded by awesome people like yourself, and that have made it a lifestyle. And like you said, they make it easy for themselves. I always call it, put it in the toothbrush category, brush your teeth category, not the get a massage category. It's just something you do. One of the most controversial things in my experience in the health and fitness industry is nutrition, right? Everybody's got a philosophy. People can get very dogmatic about it, just veganism. Nope, just carnivore, or what have you. And we're not going to hold you to this, of course, but what was your philosophy on your personal nutrition that allows you to live the lifestyle that you're living, have the Ben and Jerry's, go out and get a couple beers with the guys periodically? What is that philosophy for you?
It's about not being perfect, right? Everybody's like, oh, you got to have the leanest chicken and you got to have, the best vegetables. They can't be the frozen vegetables. For people that have not made the choice to eat, we'll call it healthy, because anything in moderation is going to be just fine. It's not going to kill you at any point, right? But just baby steps. Like I didn't start just having like really lean meats and only vegetables and some light sauces or some creamy sauces or whatever. Like sometimes you go to, where's my favorite place? Like I love a Potbelly sandwich, right? It's this, all the sauce that's on there is probably a ton of calories and fats and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's probably better than the McDonald's Big Mac that you just ate, right? And so it's being okay that it's not perfect in the beginning, right? You're not going to nail it every single time. But eventually you're going to go, all right, once it becomes more of a conscious thought, you'll start to pre-plan, right? And then you'll be able to go, oh, instead of ordering Potbellies today, I am going to make my sandwich today so that it's a little bit cleaner or whatever it is. Or I'm going to order from this place and I'm going to order less dressing and less this and take some of these things off. Or go to, like, you can go to Panera and you can have I don't want to say horrible. You can have a very high calorie dense, fat dense, right? Sandwich, or you can customize the sandwich like crazy, like I do. Like I have a favorite sandwich inside of that's got avocado and tomatoes and it's on rosemary bread and stuff like that. And like, you don't have to just pick what's at one of those places. You can make your own type of sandwich. So it's not something that I was always conscious about. It used to be, I very much used to be the, if it fit your macros kind of guy. And for anybody that doesn't know what that means, is like you get your certain protein, your carb, and your fat goal. And it doesn't matter where you get those calories from, as long as you hit those goals. So it could be some of the worst food. And so I just try to say, don't complicate it. Don't give yourself too much of a hard time. Try to make a good choice. And as far as, every diet, you can lose the same amount of weight on any type of diet. Because it all counts as it's a calorie deficit, right? And then if you're trying to build muscle, you're just trying to keep that protein as high as you possibly can while you're in that calorie deficit. But so don't get too stuck on one diet or whatever that is. But just try to create some more conscious, health conscious, decisions and consistency.
I love that. I did a podcast with Dr. Marie Agnew, and she's an amazing doctor, and she has a background in nutrition. And one of the things we were talking about, elimination diets. Why does the carnivore diet work so well for people? Well, one, it's severe calorie restriction because you've just eliminated. But two, is you're eliminating all processed foods. Like all of the crap you're putting in your body, you're not doing that anymore. You're not probably putting in cleaner meat because it tastes better. You're probably very conscious of how you're cooking it. You're getting to know your food more intimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of people get stuck on, oh, this thing lost me weight before, so I'm just going to do this thing again. And it's like, well, it's probably the things that you stop doing, like you just said, that you stop doing that actually help you get there. Yeah, I agree. So I don't get stuck to any one diet or anything like that. I love food.
Well, and what I love about what you're doing is it's sustainable, right? A lot of the diets just aren't sustainable, right? And so everybody's thinking, I'll do this for the quick fix. And once I drop that 10 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever it is, then I'll go back. And that's why they start putting it back on. You can't go out with the guys. You can't go out with your wife or with your kids and get ice cream or whatever else it is. It just doesn't become sustainable, thus not becoming enjoyable.
Right. Enjoyable. Biggest part. Yeah.
Well, I know we're talking about this before we hit record. One of the things that I love that you do is you help people not only become healthy and vital, really, get back their mojo is the way I look at it for someone like yourself that you give to the world, but you're also helping people become pain-free. And nobody knows what it's, you don't realize how much you need your back until you hurt your back. You don't realize how much you need your shoulders until you hurt your shoulders. Let's talk a little bit about what are some of the common things that you're seeing for businessmen or men in general that are coming in to work with you and going, man, I'm in pain.
Yeah. So it's usually three things, and depending on what their job is. It's like, one, they're not moving enough, right? It's very much our musculars or our body is you don't use it, you lose it kind of type situation, right? Your body's trying to be as efficient as it possibly can. If it doesn't need to hang on to a bunch of muscle mass, then it's not going to, right? Another thing is a lot of business owners, they're under stress, right? A lot of times I'll find is if we can help you become more resilient to stress, like stress isn't going to go away, right? People are like, how do we get rid of stress in our life? And it's just not going to be a thing. There's always going to be stressful things out there, right? It's like, how does our body react to it? Does our central nervous system freak out about it every single time the smallest thing happens, right? So a lot of times just getting people to understand breath work, right? Like we have the breath work in Alpha Rise and Shine, Alpha Decompression, stuff like that. Like that stuff will help. And all of a sudden your body starts freaking out, right? And your cortisol levels go down into a normal range. And like your body doesn't feel as inflamed because your cortisol levels aren't sky high, right? And all of a sudden the pain starts going away. So, and then the last thing is just, we just talked about nutrition, right? Some things that we just eat are just really inflaming to our joints, right? And they're not really nutritious for us. And they're not actually helping us recover, right? Like it's kind of true. The saying is you are what you eat, right? Whatever you put in your body is going to use that for fuel, right? And anything it doesn't need, it's either going to become an inflammation in your body or it'll become waste and it goes on up. But it's those three things. Like a lot of times people just stop moving, right? When's the last time you ran? Like just a full on out sprint, right? And then you go to do it one time because you're joking around with your buddies and guess who pulls a hamstring? It's like, it's you. You're the guy that pulled a hamstring, right? But you haven't moved. You're like, oh, I'm just old. And I'm like, you're not old. I mean, yes, you've aged like number wise, right? But like we've stopped being active. We've stopped doing those things, right? And so helping, those guys out move, obviously they were with me training, but talking about their mental state and how they can handle stress. And then again, talking about their food, a lot of the pain would go away, and it would go away faster than what they were expecting. Right. And so sometimes they're like, oh, I feel great. And then they go to try to do something. It's like, whoa, we've felt good for 3 weeks. Like we're not ready for a full on marathon, but I'm glad that we're feeling good. So those are the things, those three things are the key things that I would talk about tremendously.
I love that. And I think a lot of guys listening to this, I'm trying to imagine the person listening to this going, man, I mean, that's great, David, and all, but you don't get my hips hurt, my back hurts. The thing that I've seen with my own personal life, but also working with people and knowing guys like you, is if someone works with someone like you, David, and their back hurts, their hip hurts, what previously seems impossible, we'll just say the marathon, but what previously seems impossible starts to become possible. So someone might come see you with a goal of like, well, shit, I just want to get out of bed and not hurt. And then they achieve that goal and there's wow, I feel good. Like a 5K sounds pretty cool. They do their 5K and like, whoa, this 5K was fun and wasn't hard. It was actually endorphins building. And so what I'm saying is it starts to stack on top of each other, right? Starts to compile almost like a flywheel in business where the more and more you invest in your wellness, the more you enjoy it and the healthier you get. So you can start climbing that ladder.
Right. And the more routine it becomes. Right.
And what I've found in my life, and I'm curious with you and for the guys listening, is the more I take care of my health and wellness, people who take care of their health and wellness show up in my world. And the opposite is true too. So if I go through a pizza and beer phase, all of a sudden I'm hanging out with guys that eat pizza and drink beer who aren't in shape. And the irony is when I was in my fitness career, at the end of a race, what do? They serve beer, and guys like yourself, they can metabolize it better, right? They're out there working out, their metabolism's kicking in. So it's not like, I think there's this dogma or this view that, hey, if I get into fitness or if I become healthy, so to speak, and I'm making obviously this a bell-shaped kind of curve here, but people think I have to give up everything. And that's where I'm reiterating this from previous. That's what I love about what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to give advice to, someone listening to this, I'm sure you can think of some of the guys in TPM that you've met and, they're looking for their career, and I'm sure you've inspired a lot of them as well. They're going, hey, I don't know where to start. Where do I start? I got a gym membership, but I don't really go. What are my first steps?
Oh, first, coming from the trainer side is like, if you can find yourself a knowledgeable trainer, right? That makes it, that's one massive step. You all of a sudden, just like when you find a mentor, all of a sudden you have a massive wealth of knowledge, right? But if, let's say, somebody came to me if they're looking to train or whatever that is, or get in shape, it's like, a lot of the times before I ever worked with a client, I dove into their lifestyle. I said, what's your sleep look like, right? A lot of the guys in here, we talk about our testosterone, right? And there's a study out there that said one group of guys had 8 hours of sleep and another group of guys had 5 hours of sleep. And there was a 30% difference in testosterone just purely because of sleep. So sleep was a huge thing for me. A lot of business owners are at this kind of the grind, and they just keep going and going and going. They're like, I can run on 4 hours of sleep and get up the next morning and keep going, right? And it's like, yeah, you can until you no longer can't, or your body's just like, I just feel like crap all the time. So, we sit there and we dive into our sleep. Like, what does it look like? And how do I make that better? And for the most time, I try to tell the guys, and I know a lot of the guys, they have kids, right? They want to come home. They want to be able to play with their kids. They want to unload or whatever. But it's like giving yourself a bedtime, right? A lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, cool. But what's our bedtime going to be so that we can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and not feel exhausted, right?
Hey guys, I wanted to interrupt this episode because it's dawned on me that many of you guys aren't aware that we actually have a book on how to save your marriage without talking about it. Now, thousands of men have read it, they've reviewed it, and I want to give you the opportunity to do the same. If you're interested in grabbing it, it's a short read, but it's helped a lot of men just like you. And maybe you're not interested in the activation method yet, but this is a small entry point that can really turn things around for you. Go over on Amazon. We have it priced as cheap as Amazon will let us. And that way you have a resource that you can use right now to start getting some results in your marriage. Now let's get back to the episode.
And then, we sit down and go, what's our past look like? Were we athletes before? We're never athletes, right? And then do we dive into pain? It's like, have we ever been in pain? Have we ever had surgery or anything like that? And then obviously nutrition. And then just most of the guys, I'm probably going to, I can't assume, right? I was never the guy that was like larger and then needed to get smaller. I was the guy that was smaller and I wanted to get larger, but plenty of the clients were larger and they want to get smaller. And it's the same thing works for both of them, right? Outside of a calorie deficit, right? Strength training. Like it's how do we find, and now I'm actually getting to your answer or your question. It's how do we find a workout routine that will fit with our life, right? Obviously, we're going to have to make time. We're not going to have to just find some time. Like we're going to have to make time intentionally. And that could start with 30 minutes, 3 times a week, right? Just create the habit of 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Or, do you just work out at home, right? Do you find a good dumbbell workout situation? Like you don't have to have the world, right? But if you do have that gym membership, is there somebody that you respect that looks the way that you want to look or has done something like the way that you've done, right? A lot of times people come to me and they're like, hey, how do I look like you? We've been friends for a long time. Like, I think it's time for me to start asking you some questions. But the other thing is I say strength and conditioning because I love that. And you can obviously get, great results from lifting weights, right? That's how you start changing your muscle mass and you start getting that chiseled look, right? The big pecs and the shoulders and the biceps and the big back and legs and all that kind of stuff. But pick something that in the beginning, it's not going to sound like you enjoy it, but something that you might enjoy. It doesn't matter if, let's say, not to diss on Pilates, but like if you enjoy Pilates and it gets you to the workout 3 times a week, do it. Right. And then you can, as your fitness knowledge becomes more vast, and you're like, oh, I'm going to try, let's do CrossFit or let's go do, bodybuilding now or whatever. It's the same thing as like the convenience side of things or the enjoyable side of things. It's like, what can you pick that will be convenient to you? And then what can you pick that you will find some joy in, right? Are you going to find joy probably in the first 2 weeks? Probably not. But like you get 30 days in and you're like, oh, I see an ab. Holy shit. Right. That's where I would go is just try not to complicate it. Do I think there are better ways to get in shape than others? Yes. But is something better than nothing when you're getting started? By all means. Absolutely.
I love that. And like everybody knows, in business is so interesting to me. So if, a man's trying to expand his business, he'd hire, if he was doing marketing, he'd hire someone in marketing. If it was finance was the weak part or sales, you get a sales trainer. So getting a fitness coach is great for so many reasons, right? One is the knowledge base, but 2, unlike, a lot of guys are intimidated to go to the gym. They're intimidated because they don't know what they're doing or they don't look the way they want to look. So someone going into a gym with a fitness professional or with somebody there, that's just such an easy entry point because your trainer is going to know everybody in the gym, right? They're there. That's their home essentially. And so it's a really easy way for them to introduce you to people, show you around, and show you how to safely use the equipment so you can expedite your results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because a lot of people get very uncomfortable. They're very insecure about going into the gym and being one of those people that are on TikTok being filmed doing the piece of equipment wrong or something like that, right? And they get made fun of. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch about that. The whole trends where women are filming guys looking or glancing over, or what have you. And
you don't want to be one of those guys. You're like, sorry, I was just, you were doing it right. And I was like, I'm just trying to watch you do it. I wasn't. Yeah.
There's also nothing wrong with admiring a beautiful person, male, female, whatever, it's just, someone that's in great shape is in great shape. And also, you might just be looking at the weight stuff. In fact, when's she going to be done? So I can grab the weights. Awesome. And so you had mentioned a little bit about TRT and peptides in there. Talk a little bit more about your experience with those.
I'm 37, almost 38. About a year ago, obviously it was my introduction to TPM. And so I was in a very depressed, anxious type of state. And we can talk about that, but, my testosterone was and it's not super low, right? My testosterone was a 400 a year ago. And it's not super low, but it's low, right? The range goes to 900 and you can go well above 900, right? And so it's like originally what I had done is just, let's go get blood work and let's just see what my levels are. And my levels were all over the place. It was horrible. You'd look at me physically and go, God, that guy looks really healthy. You looked at my blood panel and they did not match whatsoever. And so I just felt like crap. I was inflamed. I didn't sleep well. Energy levels were horrible. I couldn't think clearly and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, well, in the beginning to me, it was, how can I take some supplementation and change my nutrition to let's start correcting things. And so I did that for about 6 months and I was able to boost my testosterone up to a 550. I was like, 150 points ish, naturally just sleeping better, eating better, supplementation better. Right. And I was like, well, how do I get past this? So a lot of guys will go on TRT. I didn't go the TRT route. I have not gone the TRT route yet. I have friends that have done TRT. I decided to go a route called enclomiphene. And so for anybody that starts looking at any testosterone boosting or replacement type stuff, you'll find that. And so I was like, how instantly I started even feeling more better. That's not the right word. I started feeling better. And it was like, all right, so now I boosted from a 550 to a 750 in like just a couple of months. And that was really my only change, other than continuing to get in a better routine and things and stuff like that. But then it was like, all right, let's do some blood work, and with a company that recommends peptides, right? They're becoming very popular. People don't know what a peptide is. Semaglutide. That's a peptide. The GLP-1 that people are taking to lose weight. That is a peptide, right? It's an amino acid that most of the time is produced in the body or can be produced. So there are some synthetic ones and stuff like that. Very surface level. Please don't have anybody annihilate me for that definition of what peptides are. And so it's like, and so I was like, well, how do I get big again? Right. It's like testosterone, we're doing well with testosterone. So we start taking another peptide called HCG. And that helps out with our production of testosterone. Right. And then, there's 4 different ones for human growth hormone and IGF-1. And, it's like, all right, well, let's see what we can do. Cause it's something that I wanted to be able to offer my clients. And it's like, well, I want to experiment what this is like. And so for me, I started doing that. I gained 5 pounds of muscle in 5 weeks. And I was like, wow, and that's fast. Like for you, you should know that's fast. Right. And I was in the gym, and I was going hard because I went on other peptides. A lot of times you'll hear them called BPC 157 and TB 500. Right. And so those things are helping me recover, and I'm pushing big weight pretty fast. And my accountability partner that I was talking about earlier, he's like, are you sore? And I'm like, no, I'm not sore at all. Like, let's go. And at that same time, it's at that same time that I gained, 5 pounds in roughly 5 weeks, I was also running 5 miles every single day. Like my cardio was so high. And I was also eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories every single day. So it's kind of an experiment to myself. It's like, what can I do with peptides? Like, how far can I take just peptides? Because not that there's anything wrong with TRT. I know that there are some downsides potentially, or some negative effects as people go off of TRT, right? Especially since you're now injecting a hormone into your body. And, it's like, how does our body handle that? Do we still produce hormones, stuff like that? I'm not saying it's anything bad. I just wanted to experiment with something else before I went that route. Because I have other friends that do it, and they're like, yeah, it's a night and day difference. You ask somebody who does TRT and they're like, the world of a difference. All it takes is one shot, right? And so it was more so like, how do I continue to, advance is the wrong word, but progress my own health and fitness. And so that I can then go to my clients, business owners, and help them out at the same time. Right. Caveat, you still have to work out. The peptides aren't some magic. So if they can find a peptide that just produces muscle like they do have for weight loss, like it's game over for us in the health and fitness industry. But, it was just something of like, how do I push myself even further, and how can I help out other guys understand these things that are probably seeing companies out there on their Instagram as they're scrolling and they see ads of like, I won't name any companies, but there's companies out there like, how do you boost your testosterone? And like, they see this injectable or they see peptides and like, well, what is that? And then you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, let's just give you TRT. Right. And then, because most doctors, there are plenty of physicians out there if you go specific to a company, but most doctors aren't going to prescribe any type of peptides to you. Right. And so, it was how do I help out my clients more, and how do I benefit from it at the same time? I'm somebody who doesn't love to go do that and having no experience whatsoever with it. Right. I want them to go, hey, I'm starting to feel this after 3 weeks of taking this peptide. Is that normal? I want to be like, yes, it's absolutely normal. Let's go ahead and talk to your physician. No, maybe we just need to reduce the dosage a little bit, because it might just be a little high. So, that's how I'm loving it. I think I've given myself like over 200 shots at this point. Don't scare anybody away. I take quite a few peptides. We're trying to grow this hair back. So
there's a peptide for that.
There is. I'm taking it.
Yep. Very familiar. I get nerdy and geeky with this stuff. So I dove into it pretty deeply for a while.
Okay. I was trying to stay surface level with it. I wasn't trying to get too nerdy and geeky with it for any of the guys that were listening. So,
well, it's great. One of the things I love that you said as a professional helping people, you're getting in the trenches, because there's, in my experience in any industry, you have the book smarts and then you have the in the trenches knowledge. And the fitness industry, more than any other industry that I've experienced, it's the science catches up to the in the trenches people, right? The things that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Frank, all those guys were doing, we now go, oh, this makes sense because of that, right? And they just did it and saw results and go, we're doing more of this stuff. So you have to be in the trenches to know what it's like.
You do. You absolutely do. So, and I enjoy it.
What I'd love to do is bring you back and answer questions from some of the guys if you're interested in doing that. And gentlemen, you listening to this, if you want to ask questions and I can bring in guests like this, go ahead and email vip@thepowerfulman.com. Submit your questions. Those will get filtered down to me. So that's vip@thepowerfulman.com. Reference this episode, and I'll do my best to maybe at the Pine of Ben and Jerry's to get you over here again. Maybe even get you to the TPM Ranch, then we'll get you live. That'd be fun as well. What's next for David? What's the next thing that's coming onto your plate?
The next thing coming out of my plate is, now that I've sold a physical location, is going online and to work specifically with business owners. That's where a lot of my expertise has come from. And it's diving into blood panels, like kind of we said it just at the end. And it's like, how do we look at some things inside so that we can help you get that exterior physique and be able to do something with that exterior physique? I love getting people jacked, but like, I want people to feel good at the same time, because you can be jacked and feel like crap. Shoulders hurt all the time, you know, your knees hurt and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, I'm working out, but I feel like shit.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, awesome. And so where can people find more information with you? Obviously, you've been through the TPM program. You're active in the community, which I love seeing. But the guys that aren't in the community, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess there's two places. There's my Instagram. It's David James Sherbin. And I don't know if we can add it to the show notes or not. But other place would be, you can very much email me, David and then it's trainnoble, NOBLE.com. And you can message me there and just say, hey, I listened to the podcast. Would love to hop on a call. I have no problem hopping on a consultation call with people and just figuring out if I can help them. If I can give them some advice and we don't sign up, no problem. But, you know, just here to help.
Yeah. And guys, I was in the fitness industry for over 20 years on academic side, the practical side, head strength coach. David's a guy that knows his stuff. And before we hit record, and when I was talking about what he wanted to talk about this episode, one of the things I really appreciated is he said, hey, Doug, I'm here just to provide value. That's the only outcome I want, is just to help people. And that shows. And so unfortunately, it's rare, but it shows in what you deliver. And so guys, reach out to David, jump on a call. He's a great guy, and it's worth getting to know, if anything else. Man, thanks so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are over there. Thanks for all that you do. And I know we didn't even touch bases on some of the stuff that Sophia, who connected us to be together on. So I guess it warrants another time for us to chat.
Let's do it. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. Gentlemen, as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go back and listen to this again. David lays out literally a playbook for you guys. If you've been sitting there and maybe you're like me, I have a workout, I have a meeting right after this. I'm going to have a treadmill. I'm going to be throwing that under my desk and walking just to get my body moving. I got tons of stuff to do. My desk is full. We have men to help and things to do in our lives. But make your fitness and your health a priority. And as David says, I'm guarantee if you don't, you're going to end up spending all that money that you made working hard to try to get your health back. So why not just add that into your routine, add more vitality, and you can have a couple beers with the guys at a Pine of Ben and Jerry's every now and then and still live your best life. But whatever you do, take the action today. Throw on those shoes, go for a walk, go into the gym, whatever it is for you. We'll see you next time on the TPM show.